There is always a lot of interest in understanding the internships a little bit better, and there have been a few more questions lately. So we thought that we would take some time in our seminar today, particularly since we had a great in-person seminar planned for today, something that was going to take place elsewhere on campus. Since we can't do that anymore, we thought this was a good chance to talk about internships. What I'm going to do is I'm going to spend just a few minutes framing and giving some input or some insight into the internship program in our department. And then we've got a couple of current students and a couple of former students who are going to take some time and share with us some things that they learned when they went through internships in our program. And we're really excited for all of the things that they have. I forgot to ask, though, if there's any announcements or anything from IPSO or anyone else in the department. So let's maybe put a pause really quickly and see if there's anyone. If you have an announcement, just raise your hand in the participants list.
All right, I'm a host and I can't raise my hand.
Okay, take it away, Nina.
But I am going to send in the chat, once again, our after seminar Zoom soup kitchen, where you are welcome to come and join. I think it was last week or maybe the week before. We also had a breakout room set up where you could go and talk to others about their projects, which is still part of the seminar assignments. So come and have lunch with us. Literally have lunch with us. Don't eat and then come and then eat, and we'll all eat together.
Thank you. Are there any other announcements? Okay, well then I'll pick up where I left off. We want to make sure that everyone in the program kind of understands not only the policies, but also how to get the most out of their internship, which is why we've structured the discussion the way that we have. So let me share my screen with the PowerPoint quickly. All right, are you seeing the PowerPoint? Okay, so IP&T internships, just a few things to keep in mind. So internships, they're not a job. They're also not really a class. They're kind of something in between. The way I like to think about internships, it's an extended experience that hopefully, in the best case, combines some kind of professional and academic mentoring. It kind of blends those things together at the same time. And for our program, we want to make sure that our students are having experiences that really prepare them to be leaders in the educational media, the educational technology field. And so when we start thinking about scoping internships, keeping in mind that it should be both professional and also give you some educational reflection and educational enhancement, we want to make sure that if there is a way to think about things on the left-hand side of this table as opposed to the right-hand side, that's where you should be thinking about your internships being. So acceptable internships is where you're involved in the design of instructional materials. It doesn't mean that you're the chief. You don't need to be the one that's solely in charge or the boss by any means, but you should be squarely in the world of you're actually making design decisions rather than taking the pictures for somebody else who's going to make all the design decisions. And as you look down the rest of the table, you can see that same philosophy. So in research internships that you're involved somehow, or in evaluation internships, you're involved in actually scoping, carrying out evaluative activities rather than just doing data entry. You're involved in the research study. You're not just proofreading it at the end. You're actually involved in making teaching decisions or carrying out teaching activities. You're not just grading things. Let me stop see if there's any questions at this point. And I can't see the participants list. So if you do have a question or anything like that, just go ahead and unmute yourself and ask.
I have a question. So does it have to have all those four, or just one of the four, or a couple of them?
It doesn't even need to be one of these four. So these are just illustrations to help you see the contrast between types of internships where you're going to be involved in the core activities of whatever that internship is, as opposed to things on the right where you're only peripherally involved, where you're carrying out kind of data entry or very basic tasks on behalf of someone else who's going to be carrying out the bulk of the work.
Okay.
Does that answer the question?
Yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Put some ideas in the chat of how maybe you have gone about finding internships in the past. And I'll stop the share for a second because that may impact our ability to see the chat. But in terms of, you know, those of you who have done them, so the listserv, Olga's ads, those of you who have done internships, or how did you find it? Asking for connections from Ben. Connecting on social media. Personal networking, making phone calls. Yeah, the emails that we send out hopefully are helpful. A lot of options. If you have any others, put them in, and if you just monitor the chat, there may be ideas that come up. You can look around in some of our partners. We have some partners who take a lot of our students. So the Center for Teaching and Learning on campus, the Faculty Center, our classes, particularly the classes we offer, the EPP program, the church, Imagine Learning partners. I think Alyssa has had, have you had some interns, Alyssa, at Food Safety, or is that where you interned and then you got a job there?
I interned at Imagine Learning.
Okay.
At State Food Safety, I think they thought about having interns, but they haven't done that
Okay.
yet.
So look around maybe to what internships other students have done. That might give you some ideas as well. Opportunities where you currently work are all good options there. Keep them coming if you have any others. One of the students in our program, many of you probably know Bill Kemsley. He has just created a resource that you may have seen go out over our student list not too long ago, called EdTech Careers. And this is something we want to make you aware of that may also provide opportunities, not just for internships, but possibly even jobs in the long term. So job board resources, professional associations, how to put together a portfolio, some basic advice for job seekers. So this is edtechcareers.org is the URL. You should, again, like I said, have seen it in an email if you want to go back and grab it from that email that went out to the department a day or two ago. And this is another good resource that you can look into. Thank you, Royce, for putting that in the chat. Just a couple more slides, and then we'll get to the good stuff. How do you register for an internship? There's an online application at experience.byu.edu, and that's a link that's found in the student handbook. We used to have, and some of you are still in the process, I think, for spring term or summer term internships, filling out the IP&T internship contract. So we used to have 2 forms, but recently the internship office has pretty much made obsolete everything that was on our contract. So the only document that's required now is the online internship application that you complete with the university. That comes to me. There is one other piece of information I do need, and that's an email from you that includes documentation from your internship supervisor that he or she agrees to be your supervisor. So that's just one last step that I need to be able to verify, is that the person you've claimed as your supervisor is aware of that, right? So an email that says, hey, supervisor, here are the things we agreed to. The guy back at the university says, I have to do this. Are you okay with this internship? And the supervisor says yes, and you forward that to me, and that's all that's needed. Now, some of you who are in the process of completing internships, if you're still using the old IP&T contract, that's fine too. Go ahead and if you're halfway through that form or almost done with that form, go ahead and finish that up. But going forward, you won't need to do that in that separate contract anymore. After I get your online application and an email, I approve the application, and then you can register for IP&T 599R, which is our internship course. Just a few things to keep in mind. We hope that you do a wide variety of internship experiences, particularly PhD students who do more than one. This doesn't apply necessarily to master students, but for PhD students who have 2 internships, try to branch out, get a little bit of extra experience. Consider internships that relate to your career goals. It's really easy to take a teaching internship in the department, but if you don't really have any interest already, you know that's not your goal to be a teacher, you probably want to look for another internship. If you have a current job that can count towards internship, provided that you kind of go outside the bounds of everyday work. You're getting extra mentoring, you're taking on a new project, or you're doing something, at least for the scope of that semester or term, that's not just business as usual. Again, remembering, keeping in mind that internships are hopefully a blend of both educational mentoring and practical experience. And then, as you've seen us email out as well, for the time being, all internships must be done at a distance. Something that's managed through offsite communication wherever you're at is kind of the basic guideline right now. And if you have any questions about what that means, just ask. I'm happy to help out. And that's it. Let me just pause one more time to see if there are any other questions before we jump into our panel.
I have a question.
Yes.
So, the one that you were saying about if your job has any internship opportunities or anything like that, and that it will require it, that we have to have in mind that we need some type of mentoring. What if you realize that the position or the internship itself, the mentor is not that great of a mentor, meaning of like they don't even know what they're doing kind of thing. So do I count them as my mentor, or do I have one of the professors?
Yeah, if you already know that you may not get great mentoring at work, you can have one of the faculty here in the department mentor you. You can have another professional somewhere else. You can find, even if you have another faculty contact on campus or at another university, they can do that mentoring. It doesn't have to be super formal. All we just want to do is make sure that you're pushing yourself beyond the bounds of everyday work as usual.
Okay, so the mentor and the internship don't have to be in the same location or the same.
Not necessarily. That's right. And Michelle, that is right. That form that you put into the chat, that's the one that is now obsolete. But if you're in the middle of filling it out for an internship, go ahead and just finish it up. It will still provide the information I need. It verifies that the supervisor is aware since they signed that form. But if you haven't started that form yet, don't worry about it anymore. Okay, are there any other questions? Then let's jump into our panel. So let's do alphabetical by first name. So that would be Alyssa, and then Olga, and then Shandon, and then Sean, and then Shandon. So Shandon, you'll wrap it up and bring us home. So Alyssa, let's turn the time over to you.
All right, I'll get us kicked off. So it's just fun to see everybody's faces here. Some of you I don't know, some of you I do. This is just a great community to be a part of. But my name is Alyssa Erickson. Right now I'm working as a learning experience designer at Qualtrics, and just gonna tell you a little bit about my internship. So going back in time about 3 years, it was about this time of year in 2017, I had finished my first couple semesters in IP&T in the master's program, and I was looking for internships. At the time, I was working part-time as an instructional design assistant at BYU Independent Study, and I was doing some graduate student instruction for one of the undergrad IP&T courses. But I was looking for a new experience, something different, and to challenge me in a different area. For a little bit, I thought about doing an internship at the Museum of Peoples and Cultures. And then the more I thought about it, it didn't seem the right fit for my career goals. So I looked around, and I was also trying to find something that was paid if possible. So I was looking around at companies in the area, and one that stuck out to me was Imagine Learning. And maybe you've heard of them through K through 12 schools. Perhaps you have children who do their games, but basically their mission is to deliver language and literacy and math programs to K through 12 students across the nation. And they have some really fun, engaging games and programs that they do that through. So I looked on their website. They didn't have any job openings or internship openings, but I decided just to reach out and see what would happen. So I sent an email, told them who I was, my background and my interest in their mission and their purpose. And they were kind enough to set up an internship for me. So that proactivity paid off. And while I did that internship during spring and summer, some of the duties that I had included selecting and editing and evaluating the different readings and activities that they used in their K through 8 literacy programs. I also did some user testing on the different activities and interactive things that they were creating, and helped to provide some feedback to make improvements. And it was overall a very positive experience. It was fun to see how their instructional design team worked. A lot of their instructional designers didn't have formal instructional design background. They had been teachers in the past and kind of worked their way to that position. So it was interesting to see that. But my mentor, who's the lead of that instructional design team, she did have her PhD in something related. I can't remember. Anyway, she was really good. And then halfway through the summer, I ended up taking another job part-time as an e-learning developer for the LDS Church. So I had like four different positions at once, which isn't advisable to spread yourself as thin as maybe as I did, but it was still a good experience. So my, I guess, 2 or 3 takeaways from my experience were: 1, it pays off to be proactive in seeking out an internship. Try to find a mission or a culture that you're inspired by, that you're interested in. 2, be proactive when you're actually in the internship, and maybe try not to, maybe give yourself a little bit more breathing room than I did in mine. I felt like my focus was split between a few different areas. It still worked out, but maybe just focus in a little bit more than me. And then my 3rd point would be just try to maintain the relationships that you make when you do your internship. With Imagine Learning, I kept working with them for about a year, just doing contract work on the side from a distance with just different things they needed help with. And it was fun to maintain those relationships and also keep working with them. So that's it from me.
Should I go ahead now? Okay, perfect. So I'm Olga Belikov. I'm just wrapping up my PhD. I've been around since like 2015, and I've actually done 3 internships as I was trying to figure out where my interests lie, what I want to do. I'll speak to 2 of them most specifically today because those were distance internships. The first one of those was that I was an instructional designer on a certificate program for Creative Commons. Creative Commons is a nonprofit that does all the licensing for things like OER, just kind of a little add-on to copyright that allows people to share. And what that was myself and Dave Wiley, who was adjunct in our department, were the instructional designers who, it was from the very inception of the certification. So the needs analysis, getting together all the resources, working with all the subject matter experts, doing a beta delivery of the course, building it out in Canvas. So that was my first internship, and we did that all at a distance. We would meet together as a team every few months face to face, but most of it was done asynchronously and through some online meetings. The way that I got that one was just inserting myself I knew I was interested in open education, so making connections in that field. And from David's recognition that I was interested, he was able to connect me with that and provide me with that opportunity. So even if you don't know that something's going to lead to like a job or an internship, I think making connections with people who have shared interests and values is always a really great thing to do. And my second internship I'll speak to today was a research internship that I had with George Velitsianos at Royal Roads University. He just came to visit BYU, so I'm sure some of you met him. I got to know him through Royce, as he was Royce's advisor in grad school, and Royce is my advisor. And so that internship was very specifically focused on designing, implementing research studies and disseminating those, whether that's through, short digestible videos, research articles, presenting at conferences. And our research focused on social media and learning technologies and how they're kind of used over time in scholarship. In terms of what I learned from the internships broadly, I was able to develop some skills that I really wanted to develop, like instructional design skills, group and team working skills, research skills, writing and submitting articles, conference proposals and presentations. But really what I took away from both of them was they were internships which I was interested in, and it helped me build up a knowledge of things I enjoy and am passionate about, and I still use to this day. And the other thing that I wanted to speak most specifically to were remote internship skills. And again, I have not perfected these things. They're just things I noticed myself and tried to work on and tried to push myself towards. When you're working remotely, you spend a lot of time by yourself trying to manage your time. And so blocking out your schedule for these types of work activities is really helpful. You might not always follow through, but being proactive about blocking out those chunks of time, because it is an internship. You're still balancing your research or your courses, all of that. Set aside working hours like you would when you're popping into an office, and don't let things like your thesis and dissertation fall by the wayside. It can get easy to become really engaged and hard to manage your schedule when you're working from home. And then just in terms of doing group work online, it might be a little awkward at first, but you just kind of have to work to build up your relationships with the people. Establish your channels of communication, know where people want what. So maybe they want like official things on email, informal, like easy communication on Slack, when to know, like when to have a video call, and you can still have that casual conversation. So in my like small research group, there are people I have never actually met face-to-face or met them once face-to-face, and we've worked together for years. And I still feel like we have a rapport. I know about their families, their children, that their interests that they have going on the side. So it doesn't have to be this isolating kind of strictly business relationship. Obviously, respect that it is first and foremost professional, but building those relationships can really help make for a really positive and impactful internship. And I think, like Alyssa said, it helps you keep your connections beyond the internship itself. I think something else is knowing when to like pull something from an email or any kind of text-based conversation just into a call. I think sometimes we forget how much easier it is to get some things out when you're in a video call or a phone call, and just knowing when to make the call to do that. 'Cause communicating with people at a distance sometimes can be frustrating, and just being patient, clear with expectations, and realizing that everybody's working towards the same goal. I notice this too, and I teach classes face to face and I teach them at a distance, and I notice people are just a little bit less like connected in the class, and maybe feel a little bit less like personal responsibility when they're at a distance. And so building up those connections and that personal responsibility is, I think, really important with these distance internships, and totally possible. It's been really fruitful. I honestly don't even, like, it doesn't occur to me that these aren't people I see face to face constantly, because they're, such a frequent part of my life, and we've developed such good communication skills. Those were my kind of takeaways. And then also kind of what Alyssa said, my third internship really briefly was just co-teaching the Intro to OER class with David as well. And what that was I knew it was being offered, and I just asked if he needed help and might allow me to co-teach with him, and he said yes. So finding areas of interest and asking. I mean, sometimes you hear a no, and that's okay too. You put yourself out there and gave it a shot. Sometimes pays off. So that's kind of my summary.
Okay, awesome. So, hi everybody. My name is Sean Worsley. I just graduated from the program less than a year ago. And my internship was kind of weird the way I got it. All the ways I was trying to find an internship weren't working, but it had only been, honestly, a month or two of me looking. And then somebody in the program knew somebody who was getting a PhD in the program who worked over BYU Online and basically called me in for a job interviews, which that became my internship for a little bit. So I got lucky that I found a paid internship. Well, kind of that a paid internship found me. But during that internship, like I said, I worked for BYU Online in the Harmon building. And so that means I worked on a variety of tasks. So like Jason said, you don't want your tasks to be all like data input and just boring stuff. But as most of you probably already know, sometimes you can't get away from doing a little bit of that. So I did a little bit of that, but then of course I also did course building, content creation, content editing, and sometimes I was even a face or a voice in the content. So sorry for those of you who are in 661, because that's my voice that you have to hear for every single module that you have. Well, I worked with multiple instructional designers on that particular internship. My favorite one was working with Jessica Bryan, who's actually in the program right now, and I think she's on this call. But she was extremely organized, and so she was a good person to work with during the internship, because when you're organized, she knew exactly what was on the docket. And so the assignments that I was given ranged from busy work that has to get done, like I said, all the way to face-to-face meetings with the professors for your initial kind of coaching meeting to say, hey, we want to build your course. What are you looking to do? How do we do it? What's the content going to be like? So kind of the big meta meetings where you figure out how you're even going to build the course. And then of course, presenting those finished products or half finished products to the client and seeing how they like it or how they don't like it and what you need to do after that. So yeah, I wore a few different hats for BYU Online. I think every internship, if you're lucky, you're going to have to do a lot of different things to dip your toes in a lot of areas. But at the end of the day, you could just say I worked as an instructional design assistant to a few different instructional designers who each had their own kind of unique perspective and approach, but I really appreciated all of them. We also played a lot of Sudoku and tic-tac-toe and probably talked about the temple a little bit too much, but that's my fault. That wasn't their fault. What I learned from the experience, I love that Olga did 3 internships, because while I don't know the department's feelings about that, I would have loved personally to do another internship. I know if I'm correct, master's, you need to do 1, PhD, you need to do 2. But as a master's, I would have loved to do another one just because I would have liked to go to an entirely different company, totally different atmosphere, maybe even, yeah, I just wanted a different experience that was so valuable. And I think that you can learn just as much from a really, really bad internship experience as you can a good one, and kind of learn what you want to stay away from or what you want to avoid in the future when you're looking for a career. But if I had to focus on the main thing I learned, I think I would say communication is the most important. And I learned this throughout my master's project as well. But when you communicate well, in my experience, it made it so the work was way more enjoyable. I had to do less work at the end of the day because I wasn't having to redo work that I misunderstood or that they miscommunicated. And then the less negative relationship impacts you have with your clients and shareholders and your boss and your peers. And so it's hard to be perfect at communicating, but it's really easy to buffer the situation in your favor by trying to over communicate. That leads me into a couple tips that I had. First, I would encourage you to try to focus on an area you have an opportunity to learn. So I know it's tempting to do an internship that's really, really easy. As Jason said, if you already work somewhere and you want to do an internship, just be smart and try to do, like, you have to do new responsibilities that you don't normally do, but it's already going to be easy. The department is really, really good. This intern, like the IP&T department is so good about internships because they genuinely remove almost all red tape and make it so you can immerse yourself in the internship and have a good experience. So take advantage of the fact that it's already really easy. You don't have to do a lot of returning and reporting. You don't have to clock all of your hours. You don't have to do line items specifically what you did. They just want you to do an internship. And so take advantage of that and do something where you will learn, because that will help you decide what you want to or don't want to do in the future when you're actually looking for work, which will just save you a headache later on. Second, I would encourage you to try to be smart about scheduling your degree plan. So another thing Alyssa said that I loved is that she had like 4 different part-time jobs at the same time. That's a little bit crazy, and she's amazing and could do it. I would say maybe don't be that crazy, but you'd be surprised at how much you can do at the same time. I also, one semester in, we started looking at our degree plan. I don't know if that's what it's called. Basically your graduation plan. And I just started doing some math and realized, oh, wow, I could be a lot more efficient if I did it this way and that way and that way. And that led to me being able to combine a lot of things, which might not be your motivation in the program. But if it is, Alyssa is a good example of what you're capable of doing at the same time. And so obviously some of you are going to find internships you really love and they're not going to be paid. But I'm just going to offer a really brief little improv hierarchy where you get an internship that you're getting paid for, that might lead to a full-time job, that might work as some element of your master's project or thesis, that might allow you to actually double dip with responsibilities and assignments for other classes like project management class or the 661 evaluation class, where you're needing to do different assignments in that course outside of the classroom that you might be doing during your internship. And so talk with everybody, figure out the correct ways you can double dip. And yeah, I just think that you can get a lot more done than you think. And then finally, I would say that it's kind of been mentioned, but for me, besides communication, networking is the most important thing that you can do, because that's how people find work. That's how people find lifelong friends. And I'm really grateful for BYU Online, because there are people there who, even if I only worked with them for a month or two, the atmosphere that they cultivated was really positive. And as a result, I'm going to have friendships that are going to last a really long time because of it. So yeah, take advantage of the fact that you are forced to do an internship, because essentially what you're doing is being forced to get your head out of all your schoolwork and start getting focused on things that are a little bit bigger than yourself, that it's important to recalibrate sometimes.
Okay, so it looks like I'm up. Okay, I'm Shandon Gubler. I am a doctorate student right now. I did do the master's program and then came in and now doing the doctorate. So in my master's, for my master's internship, I actually taught 372, which is now 371, but at the time of the internship, it was 372, and which is teaching technology and how to adapt to technology to pre-service teachers. And teaching is one of my end goals, and so it aligned perfect. Not only was it convenient, but it aligned with some of my goals that I hope to achieve. So getting in the classroom and actually teaching. And I did that internship for a semester, but I'm actually still teaching that course. And it's been fun to see that course has changed a little bit. And so it's been fun to see how that course has changed and morphed over time. So that was a really good experience. Currently, though, I'm doing an internship at BYU Online. I actually followed in Sean's footsteps and a few others' footsteps as well. My brother Nick being one of them, where I wanted to learn more about designing coursework. And I figured if I want to be a faculty member one day, I should probably get a little bit more experience on how to do that. So I asked a few people if they could connect me, and they said they'd talk to some of the administrators, and we were able to make it work out. So currently I'm over there and I work as an instructional design assistant. and focus largely on SFL courses, psych courses, and a few others. But it's been a fantastic experience. In fact, there's several who currently work there, like Courtney, let's see, Jessica, who's on here, and Sarah Tuiloma works there. Brett also is over there, Sandy Powell. So there's a few connections just within our group here to BYU Online or BYU Independent Study. So if you want to make connections or are curious to find out more about some opportunities, I think you have a few individuals here to do that. So what I've learned from my experience, I'll focus more on the BYU Online rather than the teaching the 371 course. But what I've learned at BYU Online is that that relationships, I kind of already knew this, but relationships are so important. That if you can establish relationships in a way, it creates opportunity for you. And so that's one thing. That's more kind of, 10,000 foot level item that's kind of been reinforced through this internship. But more specifically, I've been able to kind of get involved with course development. My prior life was in construction management, and when I was building homes, we'd have a pre-construction meeting. Well, in instructional design, we kind of do a pre-construction meeting as well, where we get to meet with the professors and kind of see what the ultimate outcomes are for the course. And then with the lead instructional designer, and I work specifically with Emily, who has years and years of experience teaching and creating courses. We kind of go through and say, brainstorm, how are we going to, take these outcomes, but implement certain things to really make it an engaging experience for the students. And it's really fun to actually see how we are focusing not only on content transmission from the teacher to the student, but also the experience. So we kind of approach it from a student learning perspective. We're focusing on the student learning and not so much the content, or not so much teaching, but how the students are learning. And so we really approach that. We dive in deep and we have these great discussions, and we talk with each other. Well, what if we did this? If I were a student, how would that be? And it's actually quite fun to go through these brainstorming little sessions and then start to implement it and then see. And then we run it through a pilot study, kind of get feedback from the pilot, and then make tweaks from there. That's just one aspect of some of the things that I've been engaged with. I've been able to also kind of take the lead on a few things, which it's nice that they have confidence in me to do that over there, but I've been able to take the lead on a few things, kind of take responsibility for a course. And one of those is the performance psychology course. And it has been a dream course. It's been absolutely a blast to work with. Another thing that I kind of learned is we're all at different phases of our journey of learning. And one of those resources that I've absolutely relied upon and I'm so thankful for is actually Courtney Hanny. I sit right next to her there, and I may have a simple, really seems stupid question, and I'll lean over to Courtney and ask her, and she'll have an answer just like that because she knows exactly what she's doing. And it's really fun to kind of realize that, that it's more horizontally structured over there, rather than having this hierarchy like, oh, I'm better than you because I've been here so long, or I'm older than you, or, you know, but it's really kind of horizontally aligned where we can rely on each other and ask for help across the board. And it's really fun to see that we can all learn from each other, you know, at some level. Tips. Tips for you, those of you who are looking for internships. I would not be afraid of no. I think one of the things that stands in our way from internships is fear. And I think fear is ultimately one of our worst enemies when it comes to, you know, going out on a limb and trying to contact someone that we may not know, or ask them, you know, to do something, or allow us to be a part of an internship where it may seem like we may be a burden. Don't let that idea of being a burden ruin your chances, because quite frequently, I think some of these internship providers need you just as much as you need them. So don't let fear get in the way. And if you do get rejected, it's okay. Control the controllable and move on to the next option that you have and ask. And you may get 10 no's and then finally one yes. That's okay. That's just part of the process. And quite frankly, it's life. Okay, so for doing internships, so I'm currently doing that internship. So yes, it's at a distance still. In fact, I just clocked out prior to coming to this course. I would say one of the biggest tips for doing internship at a distance is, it's kind of echoing what Olga said, but setting parameters, setting a time where you are in and you're blocking everything else out. And then holding yourself accountable to what you hope to achieve. So almost sitting down before you start working and say, okay, what am I hope to achieve by the time I clock out today? And setting those goals. And setting those goals that are just kind of beyond your reach a little bit. And if you don't hit them, it's okay. At least, you know, if you strive to hit those, you know, you're getting somewhere. And then I would say staying in constant contact. So Emily, the lead instructional designer I work with, we had a really good conversation today. We try to stay in touch by phone at least once a day, if not at least by email or text. But we're constantly communicating on a daily basis just to see where what's changing, to find out what we weren't anticipating that's kind of come to light, and how we address some of those things that we weren't looking forward to, and making adjustments. And I think that, and I think Sean said this too, but just continual communication is critical. Seeing what the other one needs, making adjustments as necessary, being flexible, but then also being honest. I've been asked to work as much as I can because of everything going online, but ultimately there's been times where I had to say, I'm sorry, I can't, because I have you know, these other responsibilities I need to, and you do need to try to find balance. It's hard and not always perfect, but find balance. And I think if you're honest and truthful about, you know, saying no, they're usually able to work with you. But as long as you keep that trustworthy network, you should be fine. So.
All right, thank you, all four of you. Let's just give them a kind of a virtual round of applause. They did a great job and gave some great advice. I also noticed in the chat there was some additional advice being dumped in, so you might want to take a minute before you log off and scroll through that and see if there's anything else that's useful for you as you start to plan internships. A couple other things that I want to just mention briefly before we jump off, and I don't know if the four of you will be attending the little after party, but if you are, you know, maybe there'll be additional chances for questions for the four of you, but we're almost out of time here, so I don't know if there's a lot of time in the seminar itself. Sometimes students ask, what is the work requirement for an internship? And the university actually has a pretty clear guideline for that. For every 1 hour of internship credit you earn, you need to put in about 42 hours of work. So for a 3-credit internship, that's 126 hours, about 9 hours a week. Now, Sean is absolutely right. We don't ask you to track that formally or turn it in. We assume you're people of goodwill and are doing the best to get the best education you can. And so my guidance is, if it comes out to about 125 hours, 126 hours, you're okay. You don't have to worry about falling a little bit short. Just be people of goodwill. And if it's tremendously short, then you and I can talk and we can figure out what to do. There are some organizations that offer us frequent opportunities for internships. You heard about BYU Online. They've recently mentioned to us again that they would love to have our students as instructional design assistants. And I think Dr. Graham a few days ago sent out a posting about that. BYU Pathway has opportunities, and I sent out one of those about a week ago as well. And then in our department, in addition to the classes, the undergraduate classes that Shandon talked about for a second, we also have an internship built into IP&T 664, which is the Advanced Instructional Design class. And Dr. Rich, are you still on the line? Could you maybe just say a quick word about that?
Yeah. So basically, the way that works is you take 664 in the fall, and you work together with a team of other IPT students to learn a little bit more about some of the research and psychology of learning, and then you apply that to a project for a real client. We usually try to find some nonprofit that we can work with. Jason kicked that off a couple of years ago, actually, with working with Pathway Worldwide, and they created a course for Pathway. Last year, we created a course for HP Life, and both of those have been fairly successful. And then this year, we've been creating a course for a local group called Smarter Parenting, doing a course on ADHD, or for parents of children with ADHD. And we're just about done with that. It's a great experience. The second semester, the IPT students take on more management and leadership roles as they work together with with undergraduate students from the design thinking minor to develop and produce what they've designed in the fall. And so you could talk to some of the students who've been going through that now. Jordan, Ellsworth, Nina, Jordan, Nina, Kelly. I'm going through, and of course I'll forget people as I'm going through this now. Let's see, Sam, and I'm missing one student right now. Sam, Kelly, Jordan, Nina. Okay, I'm missing somebody, but you can talk to.
Bill is in there with you, isn't he?
Bill was there in the fall.
Okay.
He actually, because of work and some other interests. Oh, Garrett, because of work. That's right, because Garrett is at a distance for us as well. Has been working with us this semester as well. So those are the folks who are taking the class right now, and so you can talk to them. Esther, in the past, last year she was our project manager. Project manager is decided upon by the class as well. Everybody takes on different roles, and it's a good experience, at least as far from what I've been able to gather from folks. I'm probably biased. So, and it's a good way of getting both class and your internship and kind of working on a project throughout the whole year.
All right, thank you. Well, we are out of time. If you have additional questions about internship policy, procedure, I'm the department internship coordinator, and I'm happy to visit with you about whatever details you have in mind. Thank you for joining us today, and we will be right back here again next week. Have a great afternoon.